The 1973. The Warner Brothers lot was supposed to be empty. Sam Chen had made sure of it, cleared the sound stage, paid off security, even disabled the cameras. Just him, Ali, and Bruce Lee for a private sparring session that would settle a barroom argument once and for all. What Sam didn't know was that someone else had paid off security too. When the warehouse door slammed shut behind them, trapping all three men inside, Sam realized this wasn't going to be the friendly match he'd arranged. Someone wanted them all in one place. Someone who knew Bruce Lee's secret. Someone who knew what really happened on the set of Game of Death. The fight that followed lasted 8 minutes, but those 8 minutes would haunt Sam Chen for the next 50 years. Because when it was over, only 2 men walked out alive, and the man who died wasn't supposed to be there at all. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The metallic taste of fear filled Sam's mouth as the warehouse lights flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting harsh red shadows across the empty soundstage. Muhammad Ali's breathing was steady beside him, the heavyweight champion's instincts already shifting into fight mode. But Bruce Lee had gone completely still, the kind of stillness that meant death was in the room. "Gentlemen," a voice echoed from the catwalks above. British accent, educated, cold as January fog rolling off the bay. "Thank you for making this so convenient." Sam's hand moved instinctively toward the .38. He kept tucked in his jacket, but froze when he saw the red laser dots dancing across his chest. 3 snipers, positioned at different angles. Professional work. "Sam Chen," the voice continued, and Sam's blood turned to ice. This wasn't random. This was personal. The man who knows where all the bodies are buried, quite literally in some cases. Ali shifted slightly, his massive frame coiled like a spring. Man, what kind of setup is this? His voice carried that familiar confidence, but Sam caught the edge underneath. The champ wasn't afraid, he was calculating. Bruce Lee finally moved, a single step forward that somehow managed to put him partially between Sam and the nearest sniper position. "Who sent you?" Lee's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried through the warehouse like a blade. "Someone who's tired of loose ends, Mr. Lee. Someone who knows about your extracurricular activities on the Game of Death set. The real reason filming stopped." Sam felt his knees go weak. Game of Death. The cursed film that had been shut down 6 months ago. The film where Sam had been working as fight coordinator when he'd stumbled across something that made his stomach turn. Something involving Bruce Lee and a briefcase full of photographs that should never have been taken. "You don't know what you're talking about," Bruce said, but his stance had shifted into the opening position of Jeet Kune Do, ready to strike or defend in the space between heartbeats. "Don't I?" The voice grew amused. "Tell me, Mr. Chen, have you shared with your famous friends here what you saw in Bruce's dressing room that night? The photos? The names on the back of each one?" The warehouse seemed to contract around them. Sam's throat felt like sandpaper. Those photographs. Politicians, studio heads, people with enough power to topple governments if the wrong secrets came to light. And Bruce Lee had been collecting them like playing cards. Sam Bruce's voice was urgent now. "Whatever you think you know..." "Enough talking." The British voice cut through the tension like a cleaver. "Mr. Chen, you have something that belongs to my employer. Something you took from that dressing room before the police arrived. We want it back." Sam's mind raced. He'd taken nothing from Bruce's dressing room except the memory of what he'd seen. But someone thought otherwise. Someone had spent serious money to trap 3 of the most dangerous men in America in one place. "I don't have anything," Sam called out to the darkness above. "Perhaps you need motivation to remember." The first shot exploded from the rafters, striking the concrete inches from Ali's feet. The heavyweight champion didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled that predatory grin that had terrified Sonny Liston. "Now that," Ali said, cracking his knuckles, "was a mistake." The second shot came from a different angle, aimed at the lighting rig above their heads. Sparks showered down as 2,000-pound fixtures crashed toward the warehouse floor. Bruce Lee moved like liquid lightning, diving left as Ali rolled right. Sam threw himself behind a stack of cameras just as the third sniper opened fire. But in the red emergency lighting and falling debris, Sam saw something that chilled him more than the gunshots. A fourth figure moving along the warehouse floor, someone who'd been hiding in the shadows the whole time, someone wearing a Warner Brothers security uniform, someone Sam recognized, the man who wasn't supposed to be there at all. Detective Ray Morrison, LAPD. The same cop who'd been asking too many questions about the game of death shutdown. The same cop who'd been pressuring witnesses to change their statements. The same cop Sam had seen taking money from men in expensive suits outside Paramount Studios 3 weeks ago. Morrison was moving toward the main electrical panel, and Sam realized with sick certainty what was about to happen. They weren't planning to interrogate anyone. They weren't planning to negotiate. They were planning to burn down the warehouse with all 3 of them inside, then blame it on faulty wiring. Case closed, loose ends tied up, secrets buried forever. Sam reached for his gun just as Morrison's hand touched the electrical panel. The warehouse plunged into absolute darkness. And in that darkness, the real fight began. What secrets was Bruce Lee really hiding? And why was Sam Chen the key to everything? The next 8 minutes will change history forever. And the truth behind what really happened might be deadlier than you can imagine. Subscribe now because tomorrow's chapter reveals the bombshell that could destroy everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's biggest legends. The first sound Sam heard in the darkness was his own heartbeat, thundering like a war drum against his ribs. 45 years later, sitting in his small San Francisco dojo at 3 in the morning, that same rhythm still haunted his dreams. Thud thud. Thud 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 thud. Sam's weathered hands trembled as he wrapped them around a cup of jasmine tea, the ceramic warm against palms that had once moved fast enough to deflect bullets in that cursed warehouse. The red numbers on his alarm clock glowed 3:17 a.m., the exact time Detective Morrison had cut the power all those years ago. He never slept well anymore, especially not since May had started asking questions. The dojo around him breathed with familiar comfort. 40 years of sweat and dedication had soaked into these wooden floors. The scent of incense lingered from evening classes, mixing with the ghost of tiger balm and the faint mustiness that came with San Francisco's perpetual fog. His students' belt rankings hung neatly on the wall beside faded photographs of Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, and himself from better days, when Sam's hair was black instead of silver, when his hands were steady, when he believed keeping secrets was the same thing as keeping people safe. Now, at 63, Sam knew better. The soft patter of bare feet on the stairs made him look up. May descended into the dojo like a dancer, her 19-year-old grace making Sam's arthritic joints ache with envy. She wore UCLA film school pajamas, a gift from her acceptance package, funded by a scholarship from the Bruce Lee Foundation. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Couldn't sleep either, Yi. May settled beside him on the meditation mats, using the Mandarin for grandfather that always made his chest tight with love and terror in equal measure. Old bones, Sam lied, setting down his tea. What's keeping you up, little dragon? May tucked her knees under her chin, studying him with eyes too intelligent for her own good. She had her grandmother's face, Sam's late wife Lynn, but her mother's stubborn streak that had gotten his daughter killed in a car accident 5 years ago. Now May was all he had left, and the weight of that responsibility pressed against his shoulders like a physical thing. I was thinking about the documentary, she said carefully. Sam's blood went cold. What documentary? The one that filmmaker called about yesterday. Marcus Webb? He said he's researching the secret match between Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali, the one you supposedly arranged. May's voice carried a note of excitement that made Sam want to lock her in her room until she was 30. He wants to interview you. Said it could be huge for my portfolio if I assisted with the camera work. The jasmine tea turned to ash in Sam's mouth. Marcus Webb. The name meant nothing, but then again the most dangerous enemies rarely announced themselves. Someone was digging into that night in 1973, and now they were using MI as leverage, whether she knew it or not. There was no secret match, Sam said, the lie coming automatically after decades of practice. Just Hollywood gossip grown into legend. But No, the word came out harder than he intended. May flinched, and Sam immediately softened his tone. "Little dragon, sometimes the past is better left buried. Those men are dead. Their families deserve peace." May studied him with those two knowing eyes. "You're scared of something." Sam looked around his dojo, at the students' photos on the wall, at the trophies from tournaments, at the life he'd built from the ashes of that terrible night. This place was more than a school. It was a sanctuary, a fortress built of routine and quiet heroism, where he taught neighborhood kids discipline and respect, where he'd raised his granddaughter to be strong and independent, where he'd convinced himself he could keep the past from finding them. "I'm scared of losing you," he admitted, reaching over to smooth her hair. "You're going to film school in September. You have a future that has nothing to do with old men's secrets." May caught his hand in both of hers. Her grip was strong, he'd made sure of that, teaching her everything he knew about protecting herself. But strength meant nothing against the kind of enemies who could arrange for 3 legends to disappear in a warehouse fire. What really happened that night, Yi? Sam closed his eyes, seeing again the muzzle flash in the darkness, hearing Allie's grunt of pain as the first bullet found him, feeling Bruce Lee's blood splatter across his face as Morrison's men closed in. The taste of smoke and gunpowder, the weight of choices that had damned them all. "Nothing," he whispered. "Nothing happened at all." But even as he said it, Sam was calculating. Escape routes from the dojo, cash hidden in safety deposit boxes. The .38 still locked in his desk drawer after all these years. Because if Marcus Webb was who Sam thought he was, the real fight was just beginning. The envelope arrived with the morning mail like a knife between the ribs. Sam had been teaching his 7 a.m. seniors class, 8 elderly Chinese men and women moving through Tai Chi forms with the fluid grace of water over stone, when May's scream cut through the peaceful morning like breaking glass. She stood frozen in the dojo's entryway, mail scattered around her feet like fallen leaves. In her trembling hands, she held a manila envelope with no return address and Sam's name written in handwriting that made his blood turn to ice water. He knew that precise script. Educated, British. The same hand that had written the ransom note 45 years ago. "Everyone out," Sam said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd survived things that would break lesser souls. His students didn't question him. They simply gathered their belongings and filed out through the back exit he'd installed for emergencies just like this one. When the last student disappeared into the fog-shrouded alley, Sam locked the door and turned to face his granddaughter. May stood exactly where he'd left her, the envelope clutched against her chest like a shield that couldn't possibly protect her from what was coming. "Give it to me," Sam said. Yee, what? Now, May." She handed him the envelope with shaking fingers. The paper felt expensive, weighted with menace. Sam's name was written in fountain pen ink, the letters perfectly formed despite the decades that had passed. Whoever had sent this wanted him to know they remembered everything. Inside was a single black and white photograph. Sam's knees nearly buckled. The image was grainy, taken with a long-range lens in poor lighting, but clear enough to destroy everything he'd built. It showed 3 figures in a warehouse, Muhammad Ali's distinctive profile unmistakable even in shadow, Bruce Lee's compact frame coiled for action, and Sam himself, younger but recognizable, standing between legends with blood on his hands, blood that wasn't his own. On the back, in that same precise handwriting, "Still have nothing to remember, Mr. Chen. Perhaps your granddaughter would enjoy hearing about your midnight activities. Your old friend." The photograph fluttered from Sam's nerveless fingers. May bent to retrieve it, and Sam watched 45 years of careful lies crumble as she saw the truth of what her grandfather really was. "This is you," she whispered, studying the image. "You were there. You lied to me." Sam sank onto the meditation bench, feeling every one of his 63 years settle into his bones like lead. The morning light streaming through the dojo's windows seemed harsh now, exposing the cracks in his carefully constructed world. "May, you knew them. You were actually there when they fought." Her voice carried a mixture of awe and betrayal that cut deeper than any blade. "Do you know what this means? This could change everything. This could get you killed," Sam finished harshly. "This could get you killed, just like it got them killed." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. May stared at him, the photograph trembling in her hands, and Sam saw the exact moment when his granddaughter's world shifted on its axis, the moment when her beloved Yi Yi transformed from a gentle martial arts teacher into something darker, something dangerous. "What are you talking about?" But her voice was smaller now, uncertain. Sam's phone rang. The sound echoed through the empty dojo like a death knell. He knew, with the sick certainty of a man who'd spent decades waiting for this moment, exactly who was calling. He answered on the third ring. "Hello, Samuel." The voice was older now, roughened by cigarettes and decades of cruelty, but unmistakably British, unmistakably the same man who'd orchestrated that night in 1973. "Did you enjoy my little gift?" Sam's free hand moved instinctively toward his desk drawer, toward the .38 that had saved his life once before. Morrison. Detective Inspector Morrison now, actually. Retired from the LAPD with full honors, thanks to some very grateful superiors who appreciated my discretion regarding certain Hollywood scandals. "But you can call me Ray." May was watching him with wide, frightened eyes. Sam wanted to shield her from this, to somehow put the darkness back in its box, but it was too late. The past had finally caught up with them. "What do you want?" "The same thing I wanted 45 years ago. What you took from Lee's dressing room before the fire consumed all that inconvenient evidence. The insurance policy you've been sitting on like a brooding hen." Sam closed his eyes. "I told you then, and I'm telling you now, I don't have anything." Morrison's laugh was like broken glass. "Perhaps, but your granddaughter is quite lovely. Talented too, from what I understand. It would be tragic if something happened to such a promising young filmmaker." The phone went dead. Sam looked at May, at the photograph still clutched in her hands, at the life they'd built together in this small sanctuary that was no longer safe. There was no going back now. The silence after the phone went dead stretched between them like a chasm. Sam stared at the device in his hand as if it had transformed into a venomous snake, while May clutched the photograph against her chest, her face cycling through confusion, fear, and something that looked dangerously like determination. "We should call the police," May said finally, her voice smaller than usual but steady. "That was a threat. They can—" Sam stood abruptly, his joints protesting after 45 years of carrying secrets too heavy for one man. "No police. Morrison still has connections, people who owe him favors. We'd be signing our own death warrants." Morrison? The man on the phone? May followed him as he moved toward his desk, her film student mind already cataloging details, building narratives. "Yi Yi, you're scaring me. What did you take from Bruce Lee's dressing room?" Sam's hand hovered over the desk drawer, over the .38 that had been his constant companion since that terrible night. But what good would it do against men like Morrison, men who turned heroes into corpses and called it justice? "Nothing," he said, but the word tasted like ash. "I took nothing because there was nothing to take. Then why—" The front door chimed. Both of them froze as footsteps approached the dojo. Too heavy to be students, too purposeful to be casual visitors. Sam's hand finally closed around the gun's grip, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought failed. "Mr. Chen?" A woman's voice, American accent, professional but warm. "I'm Detective Sarah Kim, SFPD. We need to talk." Sam and May exchanged glances. This was too fast, too convenient. Morrison had made his call less than 5 minutes ago, unless he'd planned this perfectly, timing his threat to coincide with official pressure. "Just a moment," Sam called out, quickly sliding the .38 into his waistband beneath his jacket. He nodded to May, who hastily shoved the photograph into her pocket. Detective Kim was Asian American mid-30s, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing as she surveyed the dojo. She wore her badge prominently and kept her hands visible, gestures meant to put them at ease that somehow had the opposite effect. "Beautiful space," she said, glancing at the shrine in the corner, the training equipment arranged with military precision. "You've built something special here. Thank you." Sam's voice carried 30 years of teaching patience, revealing nothing. "How can we help you?" "We received a call this morning. Anonymous tip about suspicious activity at this address." Kim's eyes found May, softening slightly. Nothing serious, just someone claiming they saw unusual visitors coming and going at odd hours. May stepped closer to Sam, and he felt her trembling despite her efforts to appear calm. She was 19, brilliant, fearless when it came to her art, but she'd never been hunted by shadows with badges and guns. "Our students come and go all day," Sam said carefully. "Early morning classes, evening sessions, nothing unusual." "Of course." Kim nodded, but her gaze had sharpened. The caller was particularly concerned about late-night activities. Said there might be illegal gambling, perhaps underground fighting. The words hit Sam like physical blows. Someone was building a case, creating justification for searches, arrests, ways to separate him from May. Morrison's work filtered through official channels that would leave no fingerprints. "We run a legitimate martial arts school," May said, and Sam heard the slight edge in her voice that meant she was getting angry instead of staying scared. "Dangerous. You're welcome to look around." "That's very kind," Kim said, "but I don't have a warrant. Just wanted to introduce myself, let you know we're keeping an eye on the neighborhood." She handed Sam a business card. "Call if you notice anything unusual. Anything at all." After she left, Sam locked the door and turned the sign to closed. The morning classes would have to be canceled. Everything would have to be canceled until he figured out how to keep Mai safe. "This is about the photograph, isn't it?" May pulled the image from her pocket, studying it with new eyes. About whatever really happened that night. Sam sank into his desk chair, feeling the weight of decades pressing down on him. "You need to pack, tonight. Take only what you can carry. I'm not running away." "You're not running away. You're surviving." Sam's voice cracked, despite his efforts to stay strong. "Morrison doesn't make idle threats. If he says he'll hurt you to get to me, he will. Then give him what he wants." "I can't give him what I don't have." The words exploded from Sam's chest, 45 years of frustration and terror finally breaking free. "He thinks I took something that night, but I didn't. I saw things, yes, terrible things, but I never took anything except the knowledge that got Bruce and Allie killed." May stared at him, the photograph forgotten in her hands. "They're really dead because of this?" Sam nodded, tasting copper and smoke, hearing gunshots that had echoed across decades. Outside, a car engine started. Had someone been watching them all along? The hunt had begun again, and this time, Sam wasn't sure he was fast enough to save anyone. The car engine faded into the fog-wrapped streets of Chinatown, but its echo lingered in Sam's bones like an old injury before rain. He moved to the window, peering through the gap between the blinds at the street below. Empty. Too empty for a Wednesday morning in a neighborhood that thrived on constant motion. "Pack what, exactly?" May's voice cut through his surveillance, sharp with the kind of defiance that reminded him painfully of her mother. "My camera equipment? My laptop? The acceptance letter from UCLA that you're so proud of?" Sam turned from the window, studying his granddaughter's face. The softness of childhood had burned away completely now, replaced by something harder. Something that looked disturbingly like the expression he'd worn the morning after the warehouse fire, when he'd stared at himself in a cracked mirror and decided to disappear. "Your documents, cash, one bag." He moved toward his desk, fingers finding the hidden panel he'd installed beneath the bottom drawer. Inside lay bundles of hundreds, passports with names that had never existed, and a letter he'd written but never sent. "There's a woman in Vancouver, Sarah Lou. She'll keep you safe until..." "Until what?" May stood abruptly, the photograph crumpling in her fist. "Until you what, Yi? Until you run too? Until you let these people win again?" The accusation hit harder than Sam expected. He looked at the letter in his hands. 45 years of apologies to Bruce Lee's family, explanations he'd never been brave enough to deliver, confessions about the night that had turned him into a coward. "You think I chose this," he said quietly. "You think I wanted to spend my life hiding. I think you chose silence." May's voice carried a pain that went deeper than their current crisis, reaching back through years of questions he'd deflected, stories he'd refused to tell. "I think you chose to let everyone believe Bruce Lee died in an accident when you know the truth." Sam's hands shook as he set the letter down. The truth. As if it were something clean and simple, something that could be delivered without destroying everyone it touched. "The truth got your mother killed," he whispered. The words fell between them like a physical blow. May staggered backward, her face draining of color. What? 5 years ago. That car accident. Sam's voice broke on the memory of the phone call, the funeral, the way May had clung to him afterward like he was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Your mother started asking questions about my past, about why we moved so often when she was young, why I never talked about my Hollywood days. She hired a private investigator. May's legs gave out. She collapsed into the chair beside his desk, the photograph falling forgotten to the floor. The brake lines were cut, Sam continued, each word feeling like swallowing glass, made to look like mechanical failure, but I knew. I knew because Morrison called me the next morning to express his condolences. The dojo around them seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as 45 years of carefully constructed safety revealed itself as illusion. Sam had built this place as a fortress, but fortresses only worked when the enemy stayed outside. He was asking about a film canister, Sam said, his voice barely above a whisper. Morrison thinks Bruce Lee filmed something that night, something that could destroy powerful people. But I swear to you, May, I never found any film. I would have given it to him years ago if it meant keeping our family safe. May was crying now, silent tears that made her look impossibly young. You let me blame myself. All these years I thought if I hadn't fought with her that morning, if I hadn't been so angry about her missing my tournament, maybe she would have been more careful driving. Sam knelt beside her chair, his arthritic knees screaming in protest. It wasn't your fault. It was mine. It's always been mine. What did you see that night? May's voice was raw, hollowed out by grief and revelation. What was worth killing 3 people for? Before Sam could answer, his phone buzzed with a text message. The number was blocked, but the words made his blood freeze. Stop by the warehouse district tonight. Pier 47. Come alone, or little May learns about her mother's final moments the hard way. R. Attached was a photograph, recent, taken with a long lens, showing M.I. walking to the corner market yesterday afternoon. The timestamp read less than 24 hours ago. They'd been watching, waiting, building their case while Sam convinced himself that silence was protection. Sam looked at his granddaughter, at the young woman who'd inherited her family's stubborn streak and her grandfather's dangerous curiosity. In 6 months, she'd be in Los Angeles, studying at the same film school that had launched Bruce Lee's career, walking the same streets where Morrison's influence still reached. There would be no running this time, no hiding behind new names and careful lies. The truth was going to surface whether he controlled it or not. The only choice left was whether May survived to see it. Sam stared at the phone screen until the words blurred together, but the message remained the same. Morrison wasn't just threatening, he was gloating. The casual cruelty of that timestamp, the precision of that photograph, the way he signed it with just an initial like they were old friends sharing memories. What is it? May wiped her eyes, trying to read his expression. Sam's thumb hovered over the delete button, but what was the point? Morrison had made his position clear. Instead, he set the phone aside and walked to his shrine, where incense had burned for Bruce Lee every morning for 45 years, penance that had never been enough. He wants to meet tonight, Sam said, alone. You can't go. I have to. Sam touched the photograph of Bruce Lee among the offerings, not the famous publicity shots everyone knew, but a candid image from the Green Hornet set. Bruce laughing at something off camera, young and alive and trusting. I should have protected him. I should have seen it coming. Seen what coming? May stood, steadier now but still fragile around the edges. What really happened in that warehouse? Sam closed his eyes, and suddenly he was 28 again, standing in shadows while legends circled each other like tigers. The smell of sawdust and motor oil, the sound of Bruce's breathing, controlled and precise. Ali's voice, playful but respectful, calling Bruce little brother in a way that made the smaller man smile. It was supposed to be private, Sam said. Just a friendly sparring session. Ali was curious about kung fu, and Bruce wanted to test his techniques against a real fighter. I was there to make sure nobody got hurt. The memory unfolded like a poisonous flower, Morrison arriving unexpectedly with a film crew, claiming he had permission. Bruce's sudden tension when he saw the cameras, the way Morrison kept pushing for just a few more rounds even when both fighters were clearly finished. But Morrison filmed it. May said, without permission. Worse. Sam turned from the shrine, and May saw something broken in his eyes. He drugged them. Put something in the water bottles during a break. I didn't realize until afterward, when Bruce started having seizures. The words hung in the air like an accusation. May's hand flew to her mouth. Morrison said it was just to make them more aggressive for the cameras, more spectacular. But Bruce had a reaction. His brain started swelling. Allie was trying to help him, calling for an ambulance, when Morrison's men arrived. Sam's voice dropped to barely a whisper. That's when I understood. It was never about filming a fight. Morrison was working for studio executives who wanted Bruce Lee gone. Too political, too independent. The fight was just cover for assassination. May sank back into her chair, overwhelmed. But the warehouse fire. I started it. The confession came out flat, matter of fact. While Morrison was distracted with Bruce, I grabbed a lamp, smashed it against the wall. The whole place went up like it was soaked in gasoline, which maybe it was. Morrison planned for everything except witnesses with matches. The dojo around them seemed to pulse with the weight of this revelation. Everything May thought she knew about her grandfather, the gentle teacher, the patient mentor, the man who preached harmony and balance, had been built on the foundation of this terrible night. Allie got Bruce out, Sam continued, carried him through the smoke while I held off Morrison's men. But the drugs, the trauma, the smoke inhalation. Bruce died 3 days later, officially from an allergic reaction to a painkiller. Morrison made sure the real cause never made it into any report, and Muhammad Ali died of natural causes 6 months later. Parkinson's, they said. But I've seen what Morrison's people can do with untraceable poisons, diseases that take years to kill. May was staring at him like he was a stranger, which Sam realized he was. The man she'd called Ye was a carefully constructed lie. The real Sam Chen was a killer who'd burned 2 legends alive trying to save them. So there was no film, she said slowly. Morrison destroyed it in the fire. That's what I thought for 45 years. Sam picked up his phone, reading Morrison's message again. Something cold was settling in his stomach. But if the film was destroyed, why is he still hunting me? Why kill your mother? Why threaten you? The question hung between them like a loaded gun. Sam had built his entire life around the assumption that Morrison's obsession was about what he'd witnessed, not what he'd taken. But what if he'd been wrong? What if there really was something hidden in this dojo? Something he'd carried home that night without knowing it? Morrison's voice echoed in his memory. What you took from Lee's dressing room before the fire consumed all that inconvenient evidence. Not the warehouse. Lee's dressing room. And Sam had been there, gathering Bruce's personal effects while the man lay dying in a hospital bed, making sure nothing important fell into the wrong hands, including a film canister he'd never bothered to develop, the film canister. Sam's hands trembled as the memory crystallized. 45 years of deliberate forgetting suddenly sharp as broken glass. He'd been so focused on the warehouse, the fight, the fire, that he'd buried everything else, but now it came flooding back. The hospital corridor reeking of disinfectant, Bruce's wife sobbing in the waiting room, and Sam slipping into that sterile room where a legend lay dying. Bruce gave me a key, Sam whispered, more to himself than to May. To his private dressing room at the studio. Said there were things there that couldn't fall into the wrong hands if something happened to him. May leaned forward, her filmmaker's instincts overriding her shock. What things? Sam closed his eyes, reconstructing that terrible morning. He'd gone to the studio like a sleepwalker, using Bruce's key to enter a space that felt sacred and violated all at once. Personal items scattered everywhere, notebooks filled with martial arts theories, letters from his children, photographs from Hong Kong, and tucked behind a loose board in the wall, wrapped in silk like a religious artifact, a film canister with no label. I thought it was family footage, Sam said. Something Private Bruce wanted to keep safe. I brought it here, put it away, and after he died... Sam's voice cracked. After he died, I couldn't bear to look at anything that reminded me of that night. May was on her feet now, scanning the dojo with new eyes. It's here? After all this time, it's still here? Before Sam could answer, the front windows exploded inward. Glass showered the floor as 3 figures in tactical gear rolled through the breach, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. Sam threw himself sideways, tackling May to the ground behind his desk as bullets chewed through the space where they'd been standing. "Samuel Chen!" The voice was electronically distorted, mechanical and cold. "We know you have it. Save everyone some pain and hand over the film." Sam's hand found the .38 in his waistband, but 3 against 1 was suicide odds, especially with May in the crossfire. His mind raced through possibilities. The back exit led to an alley, but they'd have that covered. The basement was a trap. The film they wanted was hidden 20 feet away, but it might as well have been on the moon. "My granddaughter has nothing to do with this," Sam called out, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "Let her go." Cruel laughter echoed through the dojo. "Morrison sends his regards, by the way. Says to tell you that Detective Kim was very helpful in obtaining the building schematics. Amazing what people will do when they think they're helping fight terrorism." The betrayal hit Sam like a physical blow. Kim hadn't been investigating them. She'd been gathering intelligence for an assault. Morrison's reach extended into the police department, probably into every official channel Sam might have turned to for help. Another burst of gunfire sent splinters exploding from the desk. Sam counted the shots, calculating ammunition, timing reloads. These weren't street thugs. They moved like special forces, probably Morrison's private contractors. Men who'd done this before in foreign countries where witnesses were easier to disappear. "Tell you what," the electronic voice continued. "Give us the film, and we'll make it quick. Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali can finally have some company." May gasped beside him, the casual confession hitting her like a slap. Sam saw something change in her face, the last trace of innocence burning away, replaced by a cold fury that reminded him painfully of her mother. "Where is it?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Sam pointed toward the shrine, where incense still burned for the dead. "Behind the scroll. Hidden panel." May nodded, and Sam saw her making calculations, the same way she framed shots through her camera. Angles, distances, timing. She was planning something, and Sam felt ice form in his stomach. "Don't," he breathed. But May was already moving, rolling away from the desk toward the shrine while Sam rose up firing, drawing attention to himself. The .38 bucked in his hands as he squeezed off shots, not aiming to kill but to distract, to give May the seconds she needed. Return fire drove him back down, but not before he saw May reach the shrine, her hands finding the hidden panel with unerring precision. She was Bruce Lee's student as much as his granddaughter, trained in the same economy of movement, the same deadly focus. The film canister emerged from its hiding place like a secret finally ready to be told. 45 years of silence, wrapped in black metal and sealed with the hope of a dying man. Whatever was on that film had been worth killing legends for. Tonight, Sam would finally learn why. The film canister felt heavier than physics would allow as May cradled it against her chest. 45 years of buried secrets condensed into cold metal. Sam saw her eyes dart between the canister and the shrine's ceremonial lamp, a heavy brass piece that had burned oil for Bruce Lee's spirit every night since his death. "May, no," Sam breathed, reading her intention. But she was already moving with her grandfather's desperate precision, hurling the lamp toward the rear of the dojo. Glass shattered, oil splashed across the hardwood floors, and flames erupted like angry spirits demanding justice. The tactical team spun toward the distraction, and in that heartbeat of confusion, Sam understood what his granddaughter had learned from watching him all these years. Sometimes the only way out was through fire. "The film!" The electronically distorted voice cracked with panic as smoke began filling the space. "Morrison wants the original." Sam rose from behind the desk, the .38 steady in his weathered hands. But instead of firing, he spoke, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd finally stopped running. "Tell Morrison he can have it. But first, he's going to explain why Bruce Lee had to die." Through the smoke and chaos, Sam saw the lead operative hesitate. These men were paid to kill, not to negotiate. But Morrison's obsession with that film ran deeper than money or contracts. It was personal now, twisted by decades of knowing that somewhere, evidence of his crimes existed. "You don't know what you're holding," the operative said, lowering his weapon slightly. "That film could destroy half the entertainment industry. Politicians, studio heads, people who thought they were just attending a private party." May clutched the canister tighter, her mind racing. What party? The real reason Morrison wanted Bruce Lee dead, Sam said, pieces finally falling into place as the dojo burned around them. It wasn't about politics or independence. Bruce filmed something that night before the fight, something Morrison never knew existed. The operative's mechanical laugh was bitter. Lee was supposed to be a good little puppet. Take the studio's money, keep his mouth shut about what he saw at Morrison's estate. But your Boy Scout hero decided to play investigative journalist instead. Through the smoke, Sam saw his granddaughter's face transform, not with fear but with the terrible clarity of understanding. She'd inherited more than her family's stubborn streak. She'd inherited their hunger for truth, no matter the cost. What did he film? May demanded. Insurance, the operative replied. Names, faces, activities that certain people preferred to keep private. Children who shouldn't have been at adult parties. Money that shouldn't have been changing hands. Your grandfather's precious Bruce Lee was going to expose a network that reached from Hong Kong to Hollywood to Washington. Sam felt the weight of 45 years crash down on him. All this time, he'd thought Bruce died because he was too independent, too political. But the truth was simpler and more devastating. Bruce Lee died because he tried to protect children from monsters wearing expensive suits. And Allie? Sam's voice was hollow. Collateral damage. Wrong place, wrong time. But he saw too much that night in the warehouse. The operative raised his weapon again as flames crept closer. Just like you did. The standoff stretched like a wire about to snap. 3 armed professionals, an aging martial artist, and a young woman holding evidence that could topple an empire built on suffering. The mathematics of survival were brutally simple. That's when Detective Kim appeared in the shattered window, her service weapon drawn. SFPD, drop your weapons. The tactical team spun toward this new threat, and Sam saw his chance. Not to escape. There would be no escaping the truth anymore, but to ensure it survived. Kim, Sam shouted through the smoke. The film! Morrison's been using you! The detective's face went white as understanding hit. She'd been played, manipulated, turned into an unwitting accomplice in covering up murders that spanned decades. The building schematics, the surveillance reports, the intelligence gathering, all of it designed to help Morrison finally claim the one piece of evidence that could destroy him. But Kim was a cop before she was anyone's pawn. Her weapon tracked toward the nearest operative just as return fire erupted from the smoke. In that moment of chaos, as bullets flew and flames consumed the shrine where Sam had mourned for half a lifetime, May made her choice. She didn't run for safety or shelter. Instead, she pulled out her phone, connected the film canister to a portable scanner she'd brought for documenting her grandfather's stories, and began uploading 45-year-old evidence to every social media platform, news outlet, and government watchdog site she could access. Stop her! The operative's voice cracked with genuine terror now. But it was too late. The truth was already spreading, multiplying, becoming immortal in the digital age that Morrison's analog crimes couldn't touch. Whatever Bruce Lee had filmed that night, whatever had been worth killing legends for, was about to see daylight for the first time in 45 years. Sam smiled through the smoke and gunfire, finally understanding why Bruce had trusted him with this burden. Not because he was strong enough to carry it alone, but because he would raise a granddaughter brave enough to share it with the world. The fire department arrived 18 minutes after the last gunshot echoed through the burning dojo. By then, May's uploads had reached 7 million views across 12 platforms, and Morrison's carefully constructed empire was crumbling in real time as federal agencies traced financial records, warrants were issued, and 45 years of buried crimes clawed their way into daylight. Sam sat on the sidewalk, oxygen mask dangling from his neck, watching decades of his life disappear into smoke and ash. The shrine was gone. Bruce Lee's photograph curled black at the edges, incense holders melted into abstract sculptures of grief. But for the first time since 1973, Sam felt something resembling peace settle in his chest. Detective Kim approached, her badge clipped to her belt instead of her jacket. I submitted my resignation an hour ago, she said, sitting heavily beside him. Internal Affairs will want to interview you, but the DA's already cutting immunity deals for anyone willing to testify against Morrison's network. Sam nodded, watching paramedics check May's vitals for the third time. She'd inhaled too much smoke but refused to leave for the hospital until every byte of data was uploaded, backed up, and distributed to journalists across 3 continents. Her mother's stubborn streak, weaponized by her generation's understanding of how truth traveled in the digital age. "She's remarkable," Kim said, following his gaze. "She's her mother's daughter." Sam's voice carried equal measures of pride and sorrow. Grace would have done the same thing. 2 of Morrison's operatives lay dead in the ruins. The third was in custody, already negotiating his own immunity deal. Morrison himself had been arrested at his Malibu estate while trying to board a private jet to a non-extradition country. The infrastructure that had silenced Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali was collapsing faster than its architects could react. May finished with the paramedics and walked over, her phone still buzzing with calls from news outlets. She looked older than her 19 years, aged by the weight of truths that couldn't be unknown. But her eyes held a clarity that reminded Sam of Bruce, the same unwavering focus that had made legends trust him with their secrets. "The Lee Foundation called," she said, settling beside her grandfather. "They want to establish a scholarship in Mom's name, for investigative journalists." Sam smiled through the exhaustion. Grace would have liked that, her death finally meaning something beyond senseless violence. They sat in comfortable silence as the last flames were extinguished, watching the dojo that had been Sam's refuge transform into a crime scene. Yellow tape fluttered in the evening breeze, marking the boundaries of a story that had taken half a century to reach its conclusion. "What will you do now?" Kim asked. Sam considered the question. At 63, he was too old to start over, too tired to keep running from ghosts that no longer had power over him. The dojo was gone, but maybe that was fitting. It had always been a monument to guilt more than healing. "Testify," he said simply. "Tell the truth, all of it. And after that?" May answered before he could. "We're going to make a documentary about Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, and the night that changed everything. The real story this time." Sam looked at his granddaughter with surprise and growing warmth. She'd lost her scholarship, her safe future, her carefully planned trajectory toward success. But she'd gained something more valuable, a purpose that connected her to the best parts of her family's legacy. "You don't have to," he said. "Yes, I do." May's voice carried the same quiet determination that had driven her mother's journalism, her grandfather's protection of dangerous truths. Someone needs to tell their story properly. Not the legend version or the conspiracy version, just the truth about 2 good men who tried to do right and died for it. The truth. Such a simple concept, but it had cost Bruce Lee his life, Muhammad Ali his health, Grace Chen her future. Now it had consumed Sam's dojo and ended his exile from a world that had tried to forget what happened in 1973. But sitting there on the sidewalk, watching his granddaughter field calls from documentary distributors and investigative reporters, Sam realized the truth had also set them free. Morrison's shadow no longer stretched across their lives. The fear that had shaped Sam's choices for 45 years was gone, replaced by something he'd almost forgotten how to feel: hope. The last fire truck pulled away as evening settled over Chinatown. Soon, tourists would walk past this burned-out storefront without knowing that legends had been mourned here, that secrets capable of toppling empires had hidden behind incense and aging photographs. But Sam would remember. He would testify, and the truth would spread, and maybe, finally, Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali could rest in something resembling peace. May helped him to his feet, her hand steady on his arm. Together they walked away from the ruins of his old life and toward whatever came next, carrying the weight of truth that no longer felt like a burden. Behind them, smoke rose into the San Francisco sky like prayers finally answered.